Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy. I hope you're all doing really well wherever or whenever in the world that you are. Today we're going to be talking about my recent watches. If you didn't already know, I was in a bit of a reading slump through most of February, March, and the beginning of April, to be honest. And I did spend that time doing something in the realm of entertainment, but it wasn't so much reading books as it was watching TV shows, movies. Some were adaptations from books that I've read. Some were not book related at all, but I really enjoyed some of the things that I watched over the last few months. I wanted to share them with you all. So let's start. We're going to kind of go in chronological order, like the things that I read in order. That's what that means. And so, yeah, when I find that when work and life, to be honest, gets really stressful, I tend to rewatch a lot of familiar things. I like the familiarity with that. I like that it's a little bit lower stakes and lower stress. And some of the things that I chose to rewatch, I chose because new seasons had come out this year. And some of them I chose because they're just comfy, I said comfy reads, comfy shows, like things that I just genuinely adore. All right, we're gonna start with Shadow and Bone. So I know season 2 came out, I think back in February maybe. I rewatched season 1 in order to like prep and kind of get reconnected to the characters and the storyline. Because honestly, it's been a full year and some change probably. And I didn't remember where we left off. So I wanted to rewatch season 1. So I did that. And I love season 1. Season 1 was so great. And I jumped right into season 2. And here are some of my general thoughts. My first noticing is that pretty early on, I realized that when I was watching season 2, I occasionally had that thought where I wish that I had reread the Six of Crows duology. I was really having a hard time remembering, and I guess it really doesn't matter in the scheme of things. It was having a really hard time remembering like what was new to the backstory of the Six of Crows characters and what was being played out, things that I had seen or that I had read in the books. So I do think a reread isn't a bad idea. If you're into rereads, that could be a good idea. Sorry, I'm just occasionally looking down because I did take a couple of notes. Okay, my next thought was that I loved Sturmhold, or whatever his name is in the show. I thought the actor did a really great job, really leaning into the goofy, cheeky energy. My only complaint is that I thought the actor who played Sturmhold, and to be honest, the actor that played Wylan just looked too young, or they looked younger than like who I had envisioned in my mind. But I thought both of them did a wonderful job. I loved all of the scenes with Jenya and David, or like relating to Jenya and David. Loved all of that. Overall, I enjoyed season 2, but not nearly as much as I liked season 1. I think so much of that had to do with just the novelty of season 1 of combining these two series together was so fun, and it was so exciting to see how they were going to weave storylines and how characters were going to interact across the series. Like that was so fun. And I think that's why I liked season 1 so much. And I just find that in general, and this was true when I was reading the books, I care so much more about, and I like the Six of Crows characters just so much more than the Mal-Alina storyline. I don't find that nearly as captivating or interesting. I like that they kind of changed the ending of the Mal and Alina story so that it can grow into other things beyond what's written in the books. But I'm like really here for the Six of Crows storyline. So I'm excited for season 3. I'm definitely going to watch it. But overall, I thought season 1 was better than season 2. I feel like season 2 had a little bit of like mid-book, what is it called? Mid-book slump, book 2 slump, second sequel slump, or whatever that's called. I felt like season 2 had a little bit of that going on. After I watched Shadow and Bone, then I rewatched seasons 1 and 2 of The Witcher. I'm obsessed. I love both of those seasons so much because the prequel came out this year or recently. I think it's called The Witcher Blood Witch? No. Blood Origin. I think that's what it's called. And I thought this prequel was excellent. I liked that it covered some of the lore that comes out in the later seasons or later books. I thought the acting was great. I thought visually it was beautiful. I was so interested. I thought it was so great. And I didn't realize that season 3 of The Witcher comes out very soon. Like, I checked IMDb and it says June 29th. So kind of like right around the corner, and I'm here for it. I am a little bit sad and skeptical that in season 4 and beyond, Henry Cavill won't be Geralt of Rivia. It's gonna be Liam Hemsworth, I think. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like Liam's gonna have really big shoes to fill, because to me, Henry Cavill is Geralt of Rivia. Like, he is the perfect embodiment of that character. And so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. All that to say is, I didn't take notes for this particular show, so I'm just kind of recalling how it made me feel. And overall, I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm definitely gonna rewatch seasons 1, season 2, the prequel before, probably again leading up to season 3, because I have a problem. But it was great. Highly recommend. Then I watched my obsession. I could not stop consuming Daisy Jones. I have rewatched that show maybe 5 times, maybe more. Certain episodes, definitely more. I feel like this show is like perfect. I have almost no notes. I think the show is better than the book, which is bold, I know, but I think it's true. First of all, the makeup in the show is fantastic. The way you can see each character's like makeup and outfits and hairstyles evolve as their characters kind of grow and change is visually stunning, and it's so interesting and so fantastic. Like, just thinking about Daisy Jones, how like at the beginning she starts with this like no makeup look, and she's like got loose hair, and it's very like hippy dippy and light colors, and then by the end she has like really dark eye makeup and it's messier, and she's just got like an edgier look to her. I just thought that was so interesting and so beautifully done. I just want to commend all of the makeup, costume design, all of those people in that show. I mean, stellar. Also, overall, I thought everyone's acting performances were incredibly good. The fact that the actor who plays Eddie is English, I had to look it up because every once in a while I was like, he reminds me of this guy I saw in this like Lifetime movie who was like a British knight or something, or maybe it was a Netflix movie. And I was like, he reminds me of him. And turns out it is the same actor. He's not American. And I thought his American accent was really good. My only like tiny complaint with that particular actor who does Eddie Roundtree, whatever his name is that when they're doing the like live acting stuff, I thought he was beautiful and it was perfect. But when he's doing the sit down interviews, they feel a little less real. Like, it felt like he was acting more, if you know what I mean. And then I thought Sam Claflin was great as Billy, but I also, because I know that he's not American, every once in a while his American accent like isn't quite right. And so I noticed that a few times, and it takes me out of the story just a little bit. But in general, like, chef's kiss. I love everyone's performances. They did such a good job casting everybody. I thought everyone was pretty much exactly what I envisioned. And I just thought overall the acting was wonderful. I loved it. I am obsessed with the music. It is so good. It really gives off, in my opinion, like a really timeless indie pop rock kind of feel. And I think some of it is very reminiscent of Fleetwood Mac. I think it's so good. I think some of my favorite songs are probably The River is, I think, my favorite song. But I love Let Me Down Easy. You know what? I get 2 Against 3 stuck in my head a lot, which is kind of random because it's not like a big catchy tune necessarily. I really like Aurora. I mean, I like them all. If I'm being honest, I love them all. I know that they brought on some really incredible songwriters. Like the like main producer was Blake Mills, who's really incredible. I know Phoebe Bridgers contributed some. one of the Mumford and Sons brothers, whose name I always forget. I know he was a part of it. And like there were a few other really popular current artists and songwriters who helped make, write, and produce this music. And it shows. It is so good. I love the album. I loved watching them make some of the music. I thought that was so interesting. And that's a part of the show that I think is even better than the books is, you know, the books, they talked about what it was like to write certain songs, and it was so fun to get to see and hear those songs like come together, even though I know that they're different. What came to be in the show is different than what was written in the books, but I love the show music, so I'm not mad at all. I've watched so many cast interviews of all of them, and it's crazy to me how everyone came in with such different experience as musicians. You know, like Sam Claflin, I think has a background in musical theater, but didn't play any instruments really. Riley Keough dabbled in piano, but not really much more. So like they had to do a ton of vocal coach training stuff, and had to learn to play the guitar. And even the people in Daisy Jones, like Suki Waterhouse, who is a musician, she had to learn to play the keyboard for this show. And the guy who plays Eddie, he plays guitar in his own band, but had to learn how to play bass. And the guy who plays Warren has a background maybe in like jazz drums and had to learn how to play rock drums or something. I just found that so interesting. And, you know, one of the silver linings of the pandemic for all of them was they were originally only going to have, I think, like a month to learn all their instruments and get all their coaching. But because of the pandemic, they got over a year to do that. I think it's a happy accident that that's how the timing went, because it shows like the performances are so good. They did such a good job playing their instruments and singing. And I'm obsessed, if you can't tell. I took notes because I also did a reread of Daisy Jones kind of as I was watching the show. And there are so many differences, like little differences between the book and the show. And I think the way they kind of streamline some of the convoluted connections and storylines from the book, I thought it made it better. I think it made the story even better. Let me know if you'd be interested in a video highlighting all the differences between the show and the movie. I know some people really don't care about that stuff, but I do. I find it really interesting. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you'd be interested, because I did take copious notes. I also love in the show how much more you get of Camilla's storyline, of Simone's storyline. Like, I love that they have really interesting character arcs. I love that you get to see more of their thoughts, more of their life, more of them. I think it makes for a really interesting show. I like that they have storylines with Daisy Jones and separate from Daisy Jones. And yeah, okay. My gushing session is done for now. I love this show. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. And this is one where I don't think you should reread it. I think if you haven't read it, don't read it. I think the show is better. And so just do the show. Just watch the show. I love Daisy Jones. I love the show. I watched it a million times, and I think you should too. The next thing that I saw was in theater. My family saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and it was so good. I've played a little bit of D&D, and it was really fun to kind of pick out the subtle and the not so subtle nods to the game. My sister plays more D&D and knows more about it, and so she found infinitely more like of those little moments than I did, but it was so funny. I think if you've never played or heard of or watched D&D anything before, this movie is still really entertaining. There's so much humor. It's action-packed at the end. There's a little emotional moment. I got a little teary-eyed. I thought it was such a good time, so I highly recommend. And then here are the couple things that I rewatched just because. First, I rewatched the first 4 seasons of Once Upon a Time. If you don't know, this is a show that kind of recreates fairy tale classics, like Disney fairy tales, into modern day with like some spins. Some storylines like from Snow White or Little Red Riding Hood are like pretty similar to what we know of from Disney stuff, while other characters have really different character traits or personalities in the show, and it's just really interesting. I remember watching it maybe back in high school and really liking it, and I don't know how far I got at that time. This time I was just craving something familiar and kind of cheesy and predictable and kind of light and sort of familiar, and so I started rewatching this and I loved it. But after about 4 seasons, like, that bucket was full and I didn't need to watch anymore. So let me know if you've continued on in those seasons and if it's worth me finishing it, because I definitely didn't finish it back in the day. But anyways, I really enjoy it, especially if you like a fairy tale retelling kind of book and you haven't watched the show. It's a little dated because I think it started maybe in like 2011 or so, but it's still a good time. So that was fun. I rewatched the first season of iZombie. If you haven't seen this show, it's on Netflix. It is so funny. It's about this girl who turns into a zombie, and she was in medical school, and like as a way to survive so that she can have access to brains, she ends up working for a morgue and inevitably ends up teaming up with the medical examiner and a cop, and they solve crimes because when she eats brains, she like takes on the memories and personality traits of the deceased. And it's really funny. It's really smart. It's written and produced by Rob Thomas, I think. It's such a good show. I rewatched one season and I loved every minute of it. I might continue on in my rewatch, but again, my bucket was like filled with that and I didn't need any more at the time. But it's really good. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. Then the new show that I came across, I think this was on Hulu. Maybe it's called Up Here. It's with Mae Whitman. It's this sort of musical romantic comedy about these two who meet and become friendly. It was just so good. I thought it was so well written. The music is really catchy. The acting is really good. The premise is really unique. And it's a good time. There's only been 1 season and it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I thought was really fun and kind of unexpected. I really hope it gets picked up for another season because I'd love to kind of continue on and spend more time with those characters. But it was really good. If you haven't watched it, you really should. Okay, so those are all the things that I have been watching, rewatching over the last couple of months. I love reading, but I also love watching TV. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end, go ahead, leave a TV emoji or a TV show recommendation. Either is acceptable. And I'll see you guys in the next video soon. Bye.